Welcome to the Angus Report, a news program for cattle producers.
From American Angus Association headquarters in St. Joseph, Missouri, we bring you the week's top headlines, including the USDA's latest corn report and price expectations.
A new study adds fire to the renewable fuel standard debate.
We discuss ways to improve feed efficiency, and we'll meet with two special guests for an extended discussion on feed alternatives and managing for drought conditions.
This is the Angus Report. Hi, I'm Bob Cervera.
And I'm Crystal Albers.
Our top news this week. A new report from the University of Missouri Food and Agricultural Policy Institute shows a waiver of the renewable fuel standard due to 2012 drought conditions would reduce corn prices by only 0.5%, or 4 cents per bushel. The study found that a waiver of the RFS would decrease ethanol production by 1.3%, while corn available for feed might increase just 0.6%. The analysis also concluded that a full waiver of the RFS mandate would not affect retail beef prices in 2013. Many livestock groups have supported a temporary waiver of renewable fuel standards to alleviate high corn prices. Go online to view the full report from the University of Missouri.
The USDA released its latest world supply and demand estimates this month, and the projected corn outlook isn't positive news for livestock producers. According to the report, U.S. feed grain supplies for 2012 and 2013 are projected lower. The October report pegged corn yields at 122 bushels per acre, with total output down 21 million bushels from September. The latest grain stocks report shows carryover stocks are down 193 million bushels, the lowest carryout since the 1995-96 marketing year. Currently, USDA projects U.S. corn exports for 2012 and 2013 to drop more than 25% compared to year-ago levels. And feed use is expected to be down 9% from the previous year, while ethanol use is expected to drop 10%. USDA estimates for beef production are currently 3.7% lower than a year ago.
With beef prices rising, consumers are expecting more from their beef purchases. John Butler of Beef Marketing Group discusses how the cattle industry can create continued consumer satisfaction.
And the consumer is a fickle thing. It's not constant. It changes over time. And most recently, the National Beef Quality Audit pointed this out, that the consumer is really wanting to know more about the food they consume. Not just beef, but all of the food they consume. And part of that is knowing where it comes from. Knowing the animal health practices that took place at the ranch level is very important to us at the feed yard level. The source and age verification has now become a very, very important issue to the consumer in terms of the confidence they've got in the product. There's an opportunity for increased demand if we're able to meet those expectations of the consumer. I feel like that our real opportunity is in value-add products. Where we are now at a very challenging price point for all food that the consumer's eating in terms of what they're willing to pay before they make alternative choices, then that, to me, that means we've got to up the ante, if you will, in terms of the value that the consumer's receiving. We've got to deliver a better product more consistently.
With feed prices reaching record highs, feed efficiency in a cattle herd significantly influences profitability on the ranch. Bob Weber of Kansas State University says cattlemen would greatly benefit if they could improve feed efficiency by 10 to 20%.
One of our major obstacles in the beef value chain is getting accurate measurements of individual feed intake associated with accurate measurements of body weight change and composition change. For producers using Angus genetics, certainly continuing to use a number of the selection indexes that are targeted towards their marketing endpoints. So if you sell calves at weaning time, $W. If you retain ownership through the feed yard, maybe look at $beef. Those take into account some of the genetic relationships between input traits, so how much feed might be required to be utilized to meet that production endpoint, and then certainly the value of those products as they enter the marketing streams.
Voters in California will soon decide whether certain foods must carry a label denoting if they are GMOs or genetically modified. Proposition 37, if passed, would make California the first state to require food makers to add a label to GMO foods. Most raw foods, such as fruits and vegetables and processed foods, would bear the label by 2014. Meat and dairy products would be exempt from the labeling rule. Organic farming groups support the proposal, but agribusinesses like Monsanto and DuPont, farmers groups, and retailers say the labeling law would lead to higher grocery bills and lawsuits. To date, GMO labeling bills have been introduced by 19 states, but none have passed.
Pastures took a hard hit during this year's drought, but producers could gain ground on damaged grasses this fall. A good pasture management plan now could have big impacts on spring regrowth.
Now is a good time in the fall. It's a good time to collect soil samples and have those analyzed and determine where we stand in regards to soil fertility. Without a lot of those nutrients, we can start to see a decline in our stands, and they're going to be a lot less drought tolerant. Also, if possible, I always recommend as we go into the winter to try to leave about 3 to 4 inches of forage stubble, and then allowing those pastures to rest, because as we graze that forage, not only are we removing the top growth, but we're reducing the root size, the depth of those root systems. And obviously the top 2 to 3 inches of our soil is what dries out first. They need to contact either their county agent or their forage specialist within that state. And they can give them some more specific recommendations according to that forage species.
When the Angus Report returns, we welcome 2 special guests to the show.
Larry Cora of Certified Angus Beef and John Patterson of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association discuss some feed considerations to keep in mind when you deal with the 2012 drought.
Visit Angus.org to continue watching this episode of the Angus Report.